A very good morning to you, Sarah, and thank you so much for your time. I want to start here. Do you think that it's really time to get schools back on Monday?
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers as well. It will really depend on the state of how many infections and what we're doing with our hospitals, truth be told. The point of lockdown is to ease the burden on the public health system that needs to cope with people being admitted to hospital with severe COVID. So unless the minister can give us some indication that there is adequate vaccination coverage within schools and that they are able to keep children adhering to physical distancing protocols, which is no small task, especially when you admit all children back to schools, it's going to be hard to sell that schools are ready now, given that the same conditions have been the premise for school closures in the past.
Did they show, at least schools and the education department, that they handled the situation well before this closure and before this spike in COVID cases?
I think that we should have some very serious reflection about how we've managed the situation. In particular, I think that we need to see how the education system is under-resourced and understaffed, not only in light of COVID-19, but also in the light of the unrest we saw last week. People are not being given adequate access to the means they need to live flourishing lives, and that applies to the basic education system as well. So up until now, we have not had all the children going back to school. Children have been missing out on learning. Even when they are at school, meaningful learning is being eroded by excessive PPE and physical distancing protocols that take up time and resources. I think that we collectively need to say that we haven't managed education through the pandemic very well, and look at the structural causes of why. And they're the same structural causes that make people prone to wanting to seek some kind of reprieve through unrest or through political means, because people are not being given a viable living opportunity in this country, including a viable education.
So with all of these factors contributing to essentially the dire situation education in this country is facing, would you say that, which I imagine the minister will probably highlight, would you say that the vaccination of teachers probably is just a drop in the ocean?
It is. It's a very, very thin protective measure against a wave of problems. It's, to quote that old childhood story about the little boy who puts his finger in the dam wall to hold back the water. You're missing the fact that the dam is failing. So, of course, we need teachers vaccinated. We need teachers vaccinated because we need all South Africans vaccinated. But the problems and the structural issues affecting our children's ability to learn meaningfully at school go way beyond just shoving another 50 kids back in the class with an overworked and underpaid teacher and saying, do as you did before. What we were doing before wasn't okay already.
What would you like to hear the minister say? There's obviously a lot that, I mean, with everything that you're raising now, with in terms of the structure of education in this country, that there's a lot she needs to be saying, but obviously it's all about we're dealing with this problem right now. You know, we're not necessarily looking at long-term solutions. What would you like to hear her say about the problem we're facing right now?
In the short term, I think it would be very comforting to hear, number one, what type of vaccination penetration we do have into the teaching and support staff corps. Remember, teachers are not the only people who are working in schools. We also need to hear what is going to happen regarding the schools that were affected by the violence last week. There are a lot of schools in KZN that were victims of various types of destruction and loss of property and loss of infrastructure. What's going to happen with those schools? They serve a lot of children. So in the short term, we need to hear from the minister, what are those very thin protective protocols? It would also be nice if she gives us some kind of indication that she is in very close conversation with the presidency, with the Treasury, to say what happened last week, whether politically motivated or not, is a function of us not serving the people who elected us. And we are looking at how do we release some kind of public expenditure to upgrade and fix the problems in our schools in the long term. We are talking with the presidency and the Treasury about some kind of relief package that will give us hope for a longer term solution so that we don't end up back here again with wave 4 or wave 5.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time here on Newslink, Sarah. That is Sarah Black, who is an education researcher and policy analyst.